Hello, Culture Matters podcast. We are back again with another episode of the Culture Matters podcast. I want to talk about consistency today, despite the most unlikely or an unlikely place that I'm actually recording this. You're watching on YouTube. Follow me on YouTube, Jay Doran, Jaydoran. The most unlikely spot outside, 39 degrees, not too cold. The sun's beating on me here in Wilson, North Carolina, but I got to get this done. I'm going to be loud. I might be a little crass, a little blunt. I don't want to film this the middle of the kitchen over here. They got breakfast served at the hotel. Looks like the people that were sitting next to me on the bench here, they might be walking on the other side because I'm going to be loud. But today, I got to get this done in the spirit of this topic. I got to get this podcast done. I made a commitment to myself. I made a commitment in turn to you, our listeners that listen to our episodes. We're releasing 3 a day now. I made a commitment to myself to be consistent recording the Culture Matters podcast. And the word that I want to talk about today, because this bench is wet as hell. It's on my mind in the spirit of this call to action, in the spirit of episode 675 in the Culture Matters podcast, which is intensity, my word for 2025, in the spirit of all of that, in the spirit of the fact that I actually recorded this podcast a couple days ago, and it paused at 6 minutes, and then I talked for another 24 minutes, and it was never recording. And you know, the mental and emotional gut punch that is, that it was not recording, it was not saved. Oh, I got to do it all over again. Had my notes splayed out all over with my bullets. Okay, I'm going to talk about my consistency of reading, my consistency of writing, my consistency of interviews, my consistency of monologues, now my consistency of the push-ups that I've been doing before meetings, blah blah blah. I had all my notes splayed out. I crushed the podcast, and all of a sudden it didn't record. It wasn't recording. The damn show was not recording. And now I'm sitting here on a bench in 39-degree weather with my jacket on the bench because it rained last night, and it's soaked, and I'm just getting this done. There's no bullshit excuses when it comes to consistency. And if the weather was worse, I'd do it still. I got to make this happen. There's no way I'm going to be able to live to the expectation that I put for myself to grow, to break, to get to the next level, so that everyone that we serve and everything that we're aiming at can be achieved beyond what we can even conceive if I'm not consistent. I've got to be consistent every day. So here I'm going to leave you in this episode with some things that I've done of consistency that might help you. So the first thing is, and I had charts and shit I was going to show, but I'm just going to tell you. Audible. Audible. I used Audible. Now I've become a bit disenfranchised by Audible. If Audible's listening, I'd like to help you guys, because you stopped some of the things that worked for you in the beginning. And there's some lessons in that. Got to preach for a second here. The badges. There are no new badges, which is upsetting. There are no new levels. Once you get master, you're done. There's nothing beyond that for listening time, because Audible tracks your listening time. That's one of the things I love about Audible, because I want to know how much have I invested into this app, or really into the act of listening to audiobooks. How much time have I put in? I was chasing 10,000 hours because of Robert Greene's book called Mastery. 10,000 hours invested into something. You can't help but be a master. But definitely buy that book, Mastery by Robert Greene, same guy that wrote the 48 Laws of Power. I was chasing 10,000 hours. And between 2015 and 2023, really, I hit it. Today, I'm roughly 11,580 something hours. Roughly. I'm almost at 12,000 hours of listening time. That happened because for 10 years, a bit over 10 years ago, closer to 12 years, first time started listening to tapes in my car, driving to high school, started listening to tapes. And over time, that manifested into physical books, and then became audible books as a consequence of working and attempting to survive. And working and surviving means, how you gonna Sitting down and reading a book wasn't something that even crossed my mind, didn't even conceive, wasn't even something that I could do in the state of anxiety, of fight or flight. But listening to a book, or at least I thought at the time, listening to an audiobook while I was driving or walking or not on the phone, not talking to someone for a couple hours a day. And it averaged about 3 hours a day for over a half decade. Well over. I've been consistent with Audible. And because of that, I've been able to get into rooms I otherwise wouldn't get into based on my uh, pedigree or school that I had gone to, or yeah, business success or whatever. It was the information that went through my brain, or whatever that means, that I was confronted with, that led to new ideas and new concepts and knowledge, and knowledge put into practice, leading to understanding, or a degree of understanding, to get those first customers, to serve those customers, for those customers to become clients, those clients become client partners, some unbelievable human beings that respected the knowledge and the understanding and the wherewithal. And so, if it wasn't for the consistency with Audible, I don't think definitely would not be here today, would not be doing this podcast. Let's talk about writing. 30 Days of Thought. If you listen to the podcast, 30 Days of Thought was my first book. And the purpose is to read, to write, to listen, to speak. When I wrote 30 Days of Thought, and Brad said this articulately. He called me out the other day, and it wasn't the first. A couple of people have, but you're not speaking. You stopped. It's like, you're right. I did. It flip-flopped, because 30 Days of Thought was read, write, speak. There was nothing about listening in there. But I recognized that I wasn't listening, that I didn't even know how to listen. And I took a step back from the stage. And if you listen to the Culture Matters podcast, you're listening to me interviewing people and listening and learning how to listen, prepare, ask questions, not interrupt, presence, intention, learning something that was alien to me from the feedback that I've received from people in my life. Had to be consistent in that. 30 Days of Thought is read, write, speak. Truly, it was about reading an excerpt. It is about reading an excerpt or a page or two of a thought. There's room to write in the book your thoughts on the thoughts, so it becomes your book. And then there's a call to action. Shout out to Dennis Yu for giving that call to action. He's been on the podcast, which was how to do a 1-minute video to talk about your thoughts on social media. People have done that, 30 days straight, 30 Days of Thought. Like Christopher Vester has done that with Answers from the Stairs. Andrew Berman's on the podcast has done 30 Days of Thought. Paul Lucido, and so many more. Ben Menchaca supported us in the beginning of that, and so many more that consistently went through 30 Days of Thought. Well, 30 Days of Thought was a manifestation of me writing consistently. Had I not consistently wrote, there would be no 30 Days of Thought. Had I not consistently wrote, there would be no Culture Puzzle. We'd not have the consulting advisory firm we have today, working so deeply in businesses, if I did not learn how to write consistently. If we're going to talk about speaking, had I not spoken, filmed the videos, the thousands on YouTube that accumulated over time, even though I did take that step away to learn how to listen, because that's where I've been at in my own development. Had I not spoken so much on stage and on YouTube, it would have been unlikely that I have figured out that I didn't listen consistently. So consistency in not doing something, consistency is because time moves on, time goes on, and we occupy the space that we occupy. Consistency is happening no matter what we do, good or bad. Consistency is happening. So you let my example be a symbol of how important consistency is, and what kind of consistency are you acting out in your life. Audible, writing consistently, speaking. Now I'm doing the monologues again. Because I listened. If you listen to Culture Matters podcast, all the interviews, at this recording, we have 279 lifetime guests that have been on the show. 76 of our guests have been on between 2 and 10 times. These are my real relationships. They're real people to me, people I care about, people I want to get to know better. We're having conversations together. If you listen to the show regularly, you're participating in my cultural evolution, the culture building, the curation of this culture. That is consistency. It takes consistency to interview everyone and to bring them back and to make it happen. It's consistency in the interviews that's growing this show. And now, of course, this is a monologue. I'm talking about the word consistency. I'm speaking again with the foreshadowing, speaking on stage again with regularity, and having been consistent in my education, my self-education, the experience from working in businesses over the last 5 years, taking that step back. I've been consistent in those ways, and now I put this uncomfortable expectation of myself to consistently share these thoughts with you, whether it's 30 Days of Thought or the CEO manual, or it's a thought like this on a word that comes to mind like consistency, or whether it's episode 675, which was intensity, my word for 2025. No matter what the excuse could be, I'm consistently going to film these episodes of my thoughts so that you know that 30 Days of Thought exists, know that the CEO manual exists, know what we do, why we do it, how we do it, right? We're a consulting advisory firm, a partner to our client partners. We build cultures, and we've done it for years and very successfully, very, very successfully, our team. And we do it because culture matters. I had an epiphany in 2014 while running team meetings myself as a leader, or one with authority that was attempting to model leadership by telling the story of the company, by asking questions, by facilitating the meeting, by talking about the values. I had an epiphany that culture mattered, that the values of an organization are important. And that led me on a journey to figure out what culture is and why, and how to build a sustainable business around that. So how we do it, we work intensely. We observe, we shadow, we observe, we think, we problem solve, we present, and we deliver. We're not just in the idea business, but we're in the execution of the idea business as a firm. Culture Matters Advisory Consulting. We are in the idea business, but not just the idea business, the execution of the idea business. And to do that, you have to read a lot. You have to think a lot. You have to strategize. You have to be able to do so. You have to have vision. You have to be able to help others have that. You have to be able to ask questions. You have to be able to speak. You have to be leaders. You have to exude leadership qualities to lead leaders, or those in positions of authority and power, that they are called to leadership, even if they've stopped being leaders. Because leaders the idea of leadership could stop in a second if we choose not to do the actions that actually line up with what the word leader means. So I'm going to end this show with I'm proud, happy, excited, invigorated that I kept my word to myself and in turn to you to record this podcast despite my circumstance. I'm outside. The sun is in my eyes. It's annoying as hell. People are looking at me, and I am less insecure than I once was. And I'm still thinking, I wonder if they think I'm on, some kind of medication or something, recording this outside, or all, it's funny that, like, look at that millennial, it's those are the thoughts. I'm like, oh, let me go do this inside, or I should shrink and not record this, and I don't want to upset. Well, I moved outside so I could do this. I got to get it done. It has to get done. So hopefully my testimony helps you get something done that you have committed to. And I'm exemplifying the word consistency today. Please follow me at @Doran_the Culture Man on Instagram. Leave us a review in the Culture Matters podcast. And we will see you next time on the Culture Matters podcast.